Welcome back. All right, we are now hosting in studio Charles Ringera, the CEO of HELB, to take us through just a little bit of updates with what's happening lately at HELB. I know there was quite an uproar last week in regards to clearance certificates, and perhaps we can just start off by giving us clarity on that particular situation.
Thank you, Terry. As a board, we're still convinced that we should be still pushing on with making a national revolving fund, and that's what we have been, doing for the last 20 years that HELB has been in operation. Remember, HELB came into being after implementation of Cap 213A of the Constitution of the laws of Kenya, and that paved way for creation of a revolving fund. One, because I think the government looked at it, previously and realized that it was no longer sustainable to continue putting money from Treasury without necessarily making that money revolve around. And hence, that's why we have Cap 213A, which we have continued to follow to the letter in terms of implementation. Now, a bit of questions, of course, have come, if you look at the bill which has been presented now, in terms of whether that revolvability will actually continue or whether it will quickly come to an end. So far, I think, Terry, one of the key things that I need to give you some highlights of some statistics. We estimate that this country has about 3 million graduates. To date, HELB has financed about 485,000 graduates, slightly a quarter, of the total graduates in this country. And out of that, we've got about 110,000 who have completely repaid their loans, which is about 10 billion shillings, and that's quite good, for those Kenyans who have completed that repayment. We have another 16.7 billion held by about 120,000 Kenyans who continue to repay, on a continuing basis. And again, that's very good because that is the essence of the revolving fund. But then one of the key things that is concerning the board is about 75,000 Kenyans who have neither made an effort to start repaying or are yet to come up to the board and say where they are so that we can start repaying. Now that amount is actually about 8.5 billion, which is around outside there. And that's the one the board has been making concerted effort to see how that can come back. So that's
where the clearance certificate comes in?
Yes, it comes in. And also remember Chapter 6 of the new Constitution. Is it new anymore? No, it's no longer new. Chapter 6, to be of good integrity, to be able to lead anybody in this country, you require to be of good credit worth. Now, that good credit worth means then you require clearance certificate in regard to state funds that you actually took. Because those are state funds, they must come back so that they can be able to help future generations.
And how will the clearance certificate work? I know that it has been, it has been a it has been there for some time now, and people always come to get clearance certificate. But the issue last week about paying 1,000 shillings per year is the one that raised quite a bit. Maybe you can clarify on that specific issue? On
1,000, I think it's something that we've been sort of grappling with in terms of how do we make it efficient. Remember, definitely there's a processing. So that processing, of course, costs money. And it's a bit interesting that, somebody will question the 1,000 shillings of HELB, but when you go for, a certificate from Criminal Investigation Department, which you're paying 2,000 shillings, and it's also due for 1 year, they are not much complete. So, I don't know. And remember, that 1,000 shilling is actually going to finance another kid who is very vulnerable in society and who is not going to go back to school. And that's the only way we can be able maybe to say, yes, you're of good integrity in terms of loan repayment, Terry, or you're on the other side of the books, and then have remedial action of how we can be able to treat you. Yep.
Just for the record, I'm on the good side of,
good. Thank you.
All right, tell us about the implications of the HELB amendment bill on HELB's efforts to reduce the bad loans portfolio. And my question is, how much might HELB lose in that regard?
Terry, and I've already indicated the numbers that we have there. We have about 7.5 billion we have been trying to chase since the 1970s. Remember, even when the bill came into play in 1995, the government under clear mandate, they told us go back to 1970 and get the people who actually took money between 1970 and 1979. Those periods are very important for us because that is the time Kenyans did not have IDs. So we are trying, what we have is maybe Terry and Chebet. We may not necessarily have an ID number. Yes. So that we are trying to also get those numbers back. Now, what the bill, what happened in 1995 when the penalties were introduced, and that of course re-emphasized on Kenyans on the need to, after 1 year, you need to come back and start repaying the money. We saw, for example, on non-white, what you call white collar jobs, the people who are doing kind of juakali, and we saw that number move from 3 million shillings repayment per month to 90 million shillings repayment per month. Now, what the bill is actually doing in retrospect says, when you don't have a good income, then you come to the board and say, I don't have a good income, and you swear an affidavit, and the board is supposed to verify an affidavit. Now, today, this year, we will have 209,000 students on our roll in terms of the students who will be in school. We will be having about 300,000 graduates who are repaying their money. Now, for us to be able to verify that 300,000 people are actually not having a good income, and I don't know whether you have a good income, by the way. Nobody will ever have a good income, you know, in the foreseeable future. And so it becomes operationally very difficult for us to do that verification process. Now, more importantly is the number of people we have lost to the, we lost or we have gained them to the, you know, diaspora. Today, we estimate that about 20,000 of the 75,000 people we are trying to pursue are actually living in the diaspora. Now, how do we get an affidavit from the diaspora? How do we verify the affidavit from the diaspora is actually correct, so that we can then accuse somebody of perjury in case where you are actually lying? So operationally, it is good, but operationally it's becoming very difficult. I would need an army to be able to follow some of these.
And you probably, you know, perhaps this is the time now for HELB to discuss what do you do then going forward to ensure that, you know, you do not get into the bad loan situation. I mean, talking about 1970 to 1979. So what is the plan going forward? How will you ensure that, you know, students pay on time?
We have quite a number of strategies that we have been trying to put in place. One of the key things, we are now members of the Association of Kenya Credit Providers, what you will call credit information sharing in Kenya. I'm actually the current chairman. And one of the key things is we've been trying to share our data of the people who are defaulting within that environment. So which means if you default here, then it means that even borrowing loan from the bank is actually very difficult. And within that CIS Kenya, one of the key things we are trying to do is to give positive rating of Kenyans, so that when you are going for even a loan, your price, if I'm on bad data, my price should not be like your price. You should be much more competitive. So we are working on a way to have Kenyans have a good credit score that can help them actually borrow at a cheaper price. Part of that credit score will be driven by how you have behaved in terms of repaying your HELB loan. All right.
HELB opened up to TVET colleges about 3 years ago now. How's the uptake been?
Very interesting question that we have been trying to pursue, and the board has been belaboring on these points. 3 years ago, the government said part of higher education is the TVET because it is post-secondary education. So we did start distributing bursaries around 3 years ago, and the first year was bursary. Purely 100% it was bursary. That year we distributed about 192 million. The next year, the government, you know, increased that money, and we now got 300 million to come in as a loan component and a bursary component. So, and that is what we've been running. So today, typically, if you look at somebody in a TVET college, like Nairobi Institute, for example, the total school fees for Nairobi Institute will be about 45,000. So HELB today gives about 32,000 in form of a loan and 8,000 in terms of a bursary.
But are technical students taking up the loans?
Now that's the biggest problem we're having. The uptake is not very good, and I think all of us in this country, we stand accused. Nobody is telling our children that it's actually better to pursue a technical course rather than a degree course. A small simulation that we have done in terms of analysis has discovered that chances of a graduate getting a job in the first year of graduation in this country is 60%. Chances of a TVET graduate getting a job in the first year of graduation is 96%. So clearly, as a financer, you and me know where I should be able to place my money.
All right. Charles Ringera, we have to wind it there for now. Thank you so much for shedding light on HELB and the clarity as well, and of course the encouragement to technical students to take up the loan. Sir, we really thank you for joining us on the Citizen Business Center tonight. Well, Citizen Business takes a short break now. We'll be back with more right after this break.